What do I say when I'm asked that typical question? So, what is it that you do? That's what we're talking about on this training video. Look, I talk to a lot of coaches, people who are looking to start a business coaching practice or they have been coaching, and I hear it all the time. And I wish people would just not ask that typical question. You're getting to know them, but here's the reality that is the most asked question when you're meeting someone for the very first time, especially when you're in some type of business circle for sure, but even non business circles, you'll get that question often. And so when we look at strategy, which is a big part of our community here with Business Coach Mastery, we're helping business owners specifically to grow profitability through strategy. Okay. Well, when you look at your own business, and perhaps that you've been considering starting a business coaching practice, you love coaching people, you love helping people. Perhaps you even coach some people for free. Or maybe you have one client, you have three clients, you've started 3 or 4 or 5 months ago and you've got a couple of clients, you're making progress. Perhaps you've been doing it for 5 years. You've got 7, 8 clients, but you're trying to get to 15. It's all relative to this question right here. Where are leverage points with the opportunity to be able to grow my business? Here's what I mean by that is, if you go and do something tactically, in other words, you just take the action and you go do it, and you haven't thought it through, you haven't really spent time to ask questions. Is this the right activity? Should I do it this way, that way? Here's why I'm doing this activity, and so on. Then it's a likelihood that you're leaving something on the table. We call that leverage. So we should always identify, we should always ask the question, we should always look around us all the time. Where are leveraged opportunities that I can harness to grow another percent, 5%, 10%? And specifically with helping businesses, that's exactly what we do. We're helping them to grow with small incremental percentage increases in multiple business strategies. Okay, so when you look at the question that you're going to get asked, there's a couple of things that you want to think about from a leverage perspective, okay? Number one, stop worrying about the fact that, I just wish they wouldn't ask that question. Actually, as we're getting to know people from a leverage perspective, it's amazing because now we can take the opportunity that we know we're going to likely get that question probably 8 to 9 times at a time of those that we're meeting. But leverage is, I'm leveraging the opportunity till I know that it exists. So how do I get more of those opportunities? Connect with more people. How do I connect with more people? Well, this is going to get answered in a number of different ways. Let's say that in your community, there's a number of networking events, business breakfasts. As believers and Christ followers, oftentimes there are faith-based types of business organizations and events that you can go to, or you can start your own, right? But the point is, we want to put ourselves in the position to get the question asked more. Think about it. Because when that happens, guess what? You kind of shift the narrative. You shift the perspective to where now you're kind of becoming the hunted. Because when anyone is showing any type of interest in you, you're able to take that opportunity and totally handle it very different, okay? Because the goal is, leverage point one, I'm going to put myself in a position to be asked the question, number one. Number two, I'm going to be ready. This is another issue that I find oftentimes that coaches and strategists are not ready to answer that in such a way that draws awareness, that draws curiosity, that draws oh, that's interesting, tell me more. When someone is in that moment of tell me more, that's when you're in the hunted position, and now they're the hunter. Nothing wrong with being the hunter. There's going to be plenty of opportunities throughout our coaching practice that we are going to be in hunting mode. In hunting mode. Doesn't make sense, does it? In this case, though, we want to find leverage points to where we're the hunted, because now I might be able to if I did this correctly and put myself in a position and I'm well spoken with my message. I'm going to talk about that in a second. What happens over the next 90 days? I might be able to get another client or two strictly by leveraging this area. All right. So we're putting ourselves in the position to be asked the question, number one. Number two, leverage point is, well, what do I say? And this is the part you got to work through. And for context, you want to have a well-defined message that gets them to the point to go something like, that's interesting, tell me more. Wow, I've never heard of anybody doing that before. How does that work? I mean, that's the things that you're kind of working through. So you're going to start, number one, with a message framework. And then what you're going to do, which I'm going to give you an example here in a second, that what we do in our community, then what you're going to do is you're going to begin to measure the responses. So, for instance, if you are, you've created a message, you begin to use it, but you're not getting a lot of feedback questions asked, that's telling me that I'm not there yet with setting it up correctly so I can get more responses the way that I want them to be hunted. So it can be something like, hey, so tell me what is it you do? Well, I'm a business strategist, and I help business owners grow profitability by being able to find more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an additional dime on marketing or advertising. All right, so there's an example. Now, you can say what I just said 15 different ways and add a few things to it, put your own voice in it. You get the point. But that's kind of a staple example that we utilize in our, you probably hear the fire engine in the background, but somebody's in trouble. God bless them. I hope everything is okay. But at some level, you got to put your voice into it, but you want to make it specific enough that it goes, here's what's going to happen. When you have the right kind of message like I just described, here's what will happen. You're going to have a number of people to be able to go, wow, that's interesting. Wow, how does that work? Or, wow, what does that mean? And that's when you can go a step further. Then you give a very short explanation of what you meant, and it puts you in a position to make a decision based upon the individual that you're meeting. You may be able to say, hey, I'd love to sit down and kind of talk with you more. I can show you in 5 minutes how to double the profits of any business. And plus, I'm going to give you a 17-page roadmap. It's going to just kind of change your perspective on what business growth could look like. Or it may not be a business owner that you're working with. You might be working with somebody who has a extended network, and getting access to their network could be a really important factor for you and your business for referrals for the short and the long term. That's where you say, I'd love to get coffee with you sometime and just discuss life a little bit, discuss how I can help you, potentially how you could help me. Who knows? I'm constantly expanding my network. So there you go. What do I say? Well, we start with getting in a position to get the question for someone to say what it is that you do. And then the second, leverage that opportunity with a strong message framework that gives extreme clarity, that draws curiosity, that gets people asking that question, can you tell me more? What does that mean? How would that work for me? I know somebody who needs that. Like, those are the types of responses that you're driving for. And if you're not getting those responses, you got to keep working on the message. I hope this adds value to you today. Leverage is critical, right? We can't afford to be stale and get stagnant on any part of the journey in building our coaching practice, all right? We've got to constantly ask the question. We've got to constantly refine the process. It doesn't mean to stay in a state of anxiety. It means to stay in a state of strategy. And oftentimes I encourage, looking at things quarterly, or, a few things monthly, but quarterly and certainly annually for sure. So there you go. Hope that means something to you. Take care.